So there may be some electoral fuckery afoot in Texas. Apparently, several Texas organizations have received reports of voting machines switching votes in the high-profile Senate race between Ted Cruz and candidate Beto O'Rourke. Now, I'm not quite sure which way it goes. Is it going from Beto O'Rourke to Ted Cruz or Ted Cruz to Beto O'Rourke? Either way, that is a big, big problem because there are people that are getting disenfranchised, people that are voting for a certain candidate that is not getting their vote counted, and it's not going to the right candidate. Now, the Houston Chronicle reported that multiple voters have documented incidents during early voting where they have used a straight ticket option, of course. Straight ticket, of course, is where the machine is supposed to automatically choose the designated candidate for one party. Say you choose Republican Party, it chooses all the Republican candidates. Democratic Party does the same thing. Only to discover that the voting machine has selected the Senate candidate for the opposing party. So you do a straight ticket Republican, it chooses Beto. You do a straight ticket Democrat, it chooses, in some circumstances, Ted Cruz. Disastrous, right? Now, apparently people have complained. 15 to 20 people have reported the issue to the state, while a spokesperson for the Texas Civil Rights Project says they've received about a half a dozen complaints. Not a lot, but nonetheless, every vote should count. Every vote should be sacred, right? Now, of the side that's complaining the most, it seems to be mostly Democratic straight ticket voters whose ballots erroneously included a vote for Ted Cruz, and one Republican straight ticket voter whose ballot tabulated a vote for O'Rourke. So it is disproportionately affecting Democratic voters. Now, the malfunctioning is happening on Heart E-Slate machines. That's an electronic voting machine used in 82 of Texas's 254 counties. Now, this isn't the first time that those specific machines had an issue. Now, apparently the Secretary of State's office is saying, oh, it's not a machine error, it's user error. Operator error. Problem exists between keyboard and chair. Or in this place, voting machine and chair. So, look, I don't know. They say that it's caused by people not slowing down to double and triple check their ballots. Well, always do that, of course, just to make sure. But, look, I don't know. This is just more evidence that these voting machines are not, like, they're not trustworthy. I mean, look, they've got to get rid of these machines, and here's why, okay? Because there's nothing that frustrates me more than machines that don't work. Like, again, if you've been watching the time where my hard drive was failing, you would know. I get incredibly frustrated. But of these machines who tabulate incorrect votes, and again, they tabulate it incorrectly for Republicans, that's terrible. They tabulate it incorrectly for Democrats, that's also terrible, right? We actually need to fix this issue. Now, and we can fix this issue by actually going to something different. I would say hand-counted paper ballots. That would be my solution to this. But anyway, to point out how problematic these machines are, and to show why we should get rid of these, I'm going to go to an article written in the New York Times by Kim Zetter. Now, in it, she asked, how did our election system get so vulnerable? And why haven't officials tried harder to fix it? So, again, our systems are vulnerable. A lot of these places are using outdated software and outdated machines, things like that. Hey, you know what you never have to update? Paper ballots. Just saying. But she asks, or she answers the question, and she says, it comes down to money, to politics and money. She said the voting machines are made by well-connected private companies that wield immense control over their own proprietary software, often fighting vigorously in court to prevent anyone from examining it when things go awry. So one big problem with that, aside from the many other obvious problems, is here you have a company that is incentivized to protect its own proprietary software. So that's got big problems when it comes to something like elections. So if there's ever an issue with the election machines, people are unable to go in and look at what the problem is and then to go and fix the problem. And of course, for the company, on the company, it's like, why do I want to fix the problem and do updates when that's going to cost me money? I don't want to do that. Let's just sweep it under the rug. And there are a lot of politicians out there, especially the ones that win, and that might have won due to some of these technical errors, to sweep it under the rug. Well, I mean, the machine says I win, so I guess I win. Anyway, she did cite an example in Ohio 2004 when John Kerry lost the presidential race following numerous election irregularities. Kerry's team was denied access to the voting machine software. Now, in an interview with WNYC's Brian Lear, Kerry had said, quote, "We were told by the court that you were not able to get that algorithm to check it because it was proprietary information. That belonged to a giant corporation. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't look the votes to see if there was something that messed it up or if somebody hacked into the election results. I couldn't see if I actually really legitimately lost." That's a huge problem. Not only that, but Zeller also writes many of the products they make have documented vulnerabilities and can be subverted in multiple ways. Hackers, for example, can access voting machines via the cellular modems used to transmit unofficial results at the end of the election, or subvert back-end election management systems used to program the voting machines and tally votes, and spread malicious code to voting machines through them. Another thing that we might have also seen during that we could see during 2018 is eliminating or messing with voter registration databases. That is also a possible problem. Attackers also, Zeller writes, could design their code to bypass pre-election testing and kick in only at the end of an election or under specific conditions. Say, when a certain candidate appears to be losing, and erase itself afterward to avoid detection. Now, there was a weird instance of that possibly happening in Kansas. Chris Kobach. There was a weird glitch when he was behind, and suddenly Kobach is ahead. Now, his Republican candidate refused to have them look into this, even though he could have lost. He could have had this election stolen from him by Kobach. He said, "Oh, no. Don't look into it. Whatever you do, I trust the results." And it's wise, because this ridiculous insistence that that the result must be 100%, that's the 100% result, and we cannot fault it at all. When these machines are incredibly vulnerable to having their results changed, for people being able to come into and change these results. I don't know, maybe they're afraid of like, oh no, but if we do that, then nobody's going to trust any election result ever. Well, look, we have to challenge when we use these machines and when we see things that don't add up. Now, attackers, as I said before, could also make the machines produce election results with wide margins to avoid triggering automatic manual recounts in states that require them when results are close. Well, now, that's also incredibly disastrous. Now, am I saying this is happening in Texas? Not necessarily. But I also can't say that it's not happening. There's too much of a cloud over the use of, or over elections that use these types of voting machines. And I've seen too many instances of things that just didn't seem right. And there's no way that you could go back and actually verify the votes. So, look, I've seen these clouds, and I do kind of understand now a little bit more, even though I disagree with that, where people say, well, why vote then? My vote's not going to matter. It could be changed through one of these machines. Look, I get it, right? I get it. And here's the thing. Staying home and not voting actually makes it easier for them to manipulate results. Because think about it this way. In situations where the vote is closer, those who perpetrate election fraud can actually get away with it. Change one or two votes here and there, and, or 10,000 or wherever Like, think of a small number of votes in especially state elections where it's much easier to be able to change a small amount of votes and win the election. That is a possibility. And so maybe those one or two votes from the people who stayed home might have counted against that electoral fraud. So in that situation, I say vote, please vote. And look, not even that, it doesn't have to necessarily be electoral fraud. And in this case, I'm not sure with Ted Cruz and Beto, since it seems to be going both ways. But I think this is an important discussion to have. But not just, again, electoral fraud, there's also voter suppression, right? Now, voter suppression is happening in both Texas and Georgia. And it's been happening in a lot of the former Title V of the Voting Rights Act states. Now, Title V, of course, was basically where places that had engaged in voter suppression before were watched by the federal government. The Supreme Court took that away and said, oh, we don't need it anymore. Nobody's going to suppress the votes. And then here we go. We have these same states now suppressing the vote. So not only do we have voter disenfranchisement, but we also have possible election fraud. The only thing that doesn't seem to be happening is widespread voter fraud. Which is the one thing, unfortunately, one of the major parties seems to be focused on when it comes to election and electoral integrity. But if you are actually worried about what's actually going on, what's really going on, then you would be worried about attempts to hack into the elections, whether foreign or domestic, these voting machines with their proprietary software, and all the other issues that we've discussed in this video. Strange how they're not seem to be worried about that. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm gonna have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.